When HOA President Patricia destroyed my disabled daughter's life-saving dialysis machine, she thought she was just enforcing rules. She had no idea I was the chief minister. My 8-year-old Mira nearly died that day. Now Karen would learn that some rules matter more than others, like justice. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The fluorescent lights of the dialysis machine cast a soft blue glow across my daughter Myra's pale face. She was only 8 years old, but she'd already endured more pain than most people experience in a lifetime. Her kidneys had failed when she was 6, and for the past 2 years, this machine had been her lifeline. 4 times a week, for 4 hours at a time, she sat connected to it, watching her blood flow through plastic tubes while other children played outside. I was a single father, and my heart broke every single day watching my baby girl suffer. But I had to stay strong for her. I had to keep fighting. My name is David Miller, and I served as chief minister of our state, but very few people in our quiet suburban neighborhood knew that. I valued my privacy fiercely, especially after my wife Sarah died in a car accident 3 years ago. I wore simple clothes, drove an ordinary sedan, and kept to myself. The only thing that mattered to me was Myra's health and happiness. We lived in a peaceful neighborhood called Meadowbrook Estates, governed by a homeowners association. For the most part, it was a good place to raise a child. Quiet streets, friendly neighbors, well-maintained parks. But there was one person who made life difficult for everyone, Patricia Blackwood, the HOA president. Patricia, or Karen as the neighborhood secretly called her, was a woman in her late 50s with perfectly styled blonde hair, designer clothes, and a permanent scowl on her face. She ruled the HOA with an iron fist, sending violation notices for the smallest infractions. A mailbox painted the wrong shade of black. A garden gnome 2 inches too tall. A car parked 15 minutes past the allowed time. But I never imagined she would cross the line the way she did that Thursday morning. I had just dropped Mira off at school, grateful that she was feeling well enough to attend. Her dialysis session the previous evening had gone smoothly, and she'd woken up with more energy than usual. Seeing her smile as she waved goodbye from the school entrance filled my heart with warmth. When I returned home, I noticed Patricia's white Mercedes parked in front of my house. My stomach tightened. Nothing good ever came from Patricia's visits. I walked up my driveway and saw her standing on my front porch, her arms crossed, her face twisted in disgust. Behind her stood 2 men in work uniforms, holding tools. "Mr. Miller," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "We need to discuss your numerous violations." "Violations?" I asked, confused. I kept my property immaculate specifically to avoid dealing with the HOA. She pulled out a folder and began reading from a list. "Your grass is 1.5 inches above regulation height. Your trash bins were visible from the street on a non-collection day. And most egregiously, you have unauthorized medical equipment inside your home that violates our community aesthetic standards." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about? I've received complaints about the noise and the unsightly equipment visible through your windows. This is a residential neighborhood, Mr. Miller, not a hospital. That dialysis machine must go." I stared at her in disbelief. "That machine keeps my daughter alive. You cannot be serious." "I am perfectly serious. According to Section 47, Subsection C of the HOA bylaws, no medical equipment that could decrease property values is permitted in residential units. You have 24 hours to remove it, or we will remove it for you." "You're insane," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "My daughter is disabled. She needs dialysis to survive. You can't just—" "I don't care about your sob story," Patricia interrupted, her eyes cold. "Rules are rules. Everyone in this community must follow them, or chaos ensues. No exceptions." "I'm calling my lawyer," I said, pulling out my phone. Patricia smiled cruelly. "Go ahead. But I have the board's full support, and our bylaws are legally binding. That equipment goes, or you'll face daily fines of $5,000, plus legal fees. Your choice. She turned to leave, then paused and looked back at me. Oh, and Mr. Miller. You have clutter in your garage visible when the door is open. That's another violation. Consider this your final warning. Clean up your act, or get out of Meadowbrook Estates. I stood there trembling as she drove away, her Mercedes gleaming in the sunlight like a symbol of her power. I immediately called my lawyer, but he confirmed my worst fears. The HOA bylaws were ironclad, and fighting them in court would take months. Months that Mira might not have. That afternoon, I picked Mira up from school. She was tired, her skin pale, her eyes drooping. She needed dialysis that evening. How was school, sweetheart? I asked, forcing a smile. It was good, Daddy, she said softly. We learned about butterflies today. Did you know they only live for a few weeks? My heart ached. Some of them live longer, baby. The strong ones. I want to be a strong one, she whispered. When we arrived home, I carried her inside. She was so light, so fragile. I set her up in the living room where the dialysis machine waited. This was our routine. I would sit beside her, reading stories or watching her favorite cartoons while the machine did its work. But as I reached for the machine's power button, I noticed something wrong. The screen was cracked. I checked the tubes, they'd been cut. The filter compartment was smashed open. No, I whispered. No, no, no. I checked every component. The machine had been deliberately destroyed. Professionally destroyed. And then I saw it, a bright yellow HOA violation sticker attached to the side of the machine. Unauthorized medical equipment. Removed as per HOA bylaws. Violation number 00847. My hands shook as I read the words. The handwriting on the sticker was unmistakable. Patricia's signature looped at the bottom with a smiley face drawn next to it. Daddy? Myra's weak voice came from the couch. Is something wrong with the machine? I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. Patricia had entered my home while I was gone and destroyed my daughter's lifeline. My baby's lifeline. Daddy, I don't feel good, Mira said, her voice getting quieter. I grabbed my phone and called 911. My daughter needs emergency dialysis. Her machine has been destroyed. Please, send an ambulance. Within minutes, paramedics arrived. They rushed Mira to the hospital, sirens wailing. I followed in my car, my vision blurred with tears of rage and terror. At the hospital, they stabilized Mira and put her on one of their dialysis machines. The doctor, a kind woman named Dr. Patel, pulled me aside. Mr. Miller, your daughter is stable now, but she was close to kidney failure crisis. Another hour without dialysis and we would have had a very different situation. What happened to her home machine? Someone destroyed it, I said, my voice hollow. The HOA president broke into my house and destroyed it. Dr. Patel's eyes widened. That's criminal. You need to call the police. I will, I said. But first, I need to make sure Mira is okay. I sat beside my daughter's hospital bed, holding her small hand. She was sleeping now, exhausted from the trauma her body had endured. Tubes ran from her arm to the hospital's dialysis machine, and the steady beep of the heart monitor was the only sound in the room. I had stayed silent for years. I had hidden my position as chief minister because I wanted a normal life for Mira. I didn't want people treating her differently because of who her father was. I didn't want her to grow up in the spotlight, photographed and scrutinized. But Patricia Blackwood had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. She had endangered my daughter's life because of her petty rules and her need for power. It was time for Karen to learn exactly who she had messed with. The next morning, while Mira slept peacefully in her hospital bed, I made a phone call to Detective Marcus Shaw, the state's top criminal investigator and someone I'd worked with on numerous cases during my tenure as Chief Minister. "Chief Minister Miller," Marcus said, surprised. "It's been a while. What can I do for you?" "Marcus, I need your help. Someone broke into my home and destroyed my daughter's medical equipment. She nearly died because of it." The line went silent for a moment. "Sir, did you say someone destroyed your daughter's dialysis machine?" "Yes. The HOA president. She left a violation sticker on it. She signed her name. That's attempted murder, sir. I'll send a team to your house immediately. And sir, I'm sorry this happened. How is Mira?" "She's stable now. But Marcus, I want this investigation done by the book. No favors because of who I am. I want Patricia Blackwood to face justice the right way." "Understood, sir. We'll handle it properly." Within hours, police descended on Meadowbrook Estates. They cordoned off my house as a crime scene and began collecting evidence. The destroyed dialysis machine was photographed from every angle. The violation sticker with Patricia's signature was bagged as evidence. They pulled security footage from my home cameras, which clearly showed Patricia and her two contractors entering my home with tools. But that was just the beginning. As Detective Shaw dug deeper, he discovered something shocking. Patricia Blackwood had a history of HOA violations that crossed into criminal territory. In the past 5 years, she had illegally evicted 3 families by fabricating violations, embezzled over $200,000 from HOA funds, ordered the destruction of a wheelchair ramp for a disabled veteran, claiming it was an unauthorized structure, had several residents' cars towed illegally, pocketing the kickback fees from the towing company. Patricia had built a system of corruption, using the HOA as her personal kingdom. And because most residents were too afraid or too busy to fight back, she had gotten away with it. Until now. 2 days after Mira was hospitalized, I received a call from Detective Shaw. "Chief Minister, we have enough evidence to arrest Patricia Blackwood. We're moving in this afternoon. I thought you'd want to know." "I'll be there," I said. I made arrangements for my assistant to stay with Mira at the hospital, then drove to Meadowbrook Estates. A crowd had gathered near Patricia's large house at the end of Maple Street. Police cars lined the road, their lights flashing. I parked and walked through the crowd. Neighbors whispered to each other, shocked to see so much police presence. Many of them had been Patricia's victims over the years, and there was a sense of anticipation in the air. Patricia stood on her front porch, screaming at the officers. "This is harassment. Do you know who I am? I am the president of this HOA. I have connections. I'll have your badges for this." Detective Shaw stood calmly at the bottom of the porch steps. "Mrs. Blackwood, you're under arrest for breaking and entering, destruction of property, reckless endangerment of a minor, and attempted murder. You have the right to remain silent." "Attempted murder? Are you insane? I was enforcing HOA rules. That equipment was a violation. You destroyed a child's life support system," Detective Shaw said, his voice hard. "That child nearly died because of your actions." Patricia's eyes scanned the crowd, and they landed on me. For the first time, I saw fear flicker across her face. "Mr. Miller," she said, her voice suddenly sweet. "Surely we can work this out. I didn't realize the situation was so serious. I was just doing my job. I'll personally pay for a new machine. We can forget this whole misunderstanding." I walked forward, stepping through the crowd until I stood at the base of the porch steps. I looked up at Patricia, and when I spoke, my voice was steady and cold. "My daughter is 8 years old. She has been fighting for her life since she was 6. That machine you destroyed was the only thing keeping her alive at home. Because of your cruelty, because of your obsession with power and control, my little girl nearly died." Patricia's face paled. I didn't mean. You didn't care, I interrupted. You saw a child's medical equipment and decided it was more important to enforce your petty rules than to show an ounce of human compassion. Who do you think you are? Patricia snapped, her fear turning back to anger. You're nobody. Just another resident who thinks they're above the rules. I reached into my jacket and pulled out my identification card. The official seal of the Chief Minister's office gleamed in the sunlight. My name is David Miller, and I am the Chief Minister of this state. The crowd gasped. Patricia's mouth fell open. For 3 years, I've lived quietly in this neighborhood because I wanted my daughter to have a normal life. I didn't want special treatment. I didn't want people knowing who I was. But you, Mrs. Blackwood, you have forced my hand. Patricia stumbled backward, her face white as snow. Not only did you endanger my daughter's life, but I've learned you've been running this HOA like a criminal enterprise. Embezzlement, illegal evictions, destruction of property belonging to disabled residents. You've hurt so many people, and you did it because you thought you were untouchable. Detective Shaw stepped forward with handcuffs. Patricia Blackwood, put your hands behind your back. Wait. Patricia screamed. Chief Minister Miller, please. I'm sorry. I'll do anything. I have a family. I didn't know who you were. You shouldn't have needed to know who I was, I said quietly. You should have treated every resident with basic human decency. You should have had compassion for a disabled child. But you didn't. And now you'll face the consequences. The handcuffs clicked shut around Patricia's wrists. As the officers led her to the police car, she was crying, her perfect makeup running down her face. The crowd watched in silence as Karen, the tyrant of Meadowbrook Estates, was driven away. The news of Patricia's arrest spread like wildfire. Within days, it was the top story on every local news channel. HOA president arrested for destroying child's life support equipment, read one headline. Chief Minister's daughter nearly dies due to HOA tyranny, read another. The outpouring of support was overwhelming. Neighbors I'd barely spoken to came forward with their own stories of Patricia's cruelty. The disabled veteran whose wheelchair ramp she'd destroyed. The single mother who'd been fined thousands of dollars for having a pink tricycle in her driveway. The elderly couple who'd nearly lost their home over fabricated violations. One by one, they testified against Patricia. The evidence was damning. The HOA board held an emergency meeting and immediately dissolved Patricia's presidency. They also voted to reimburse all the families she had wronged and to rewrite the bylaws to prevent such abuse of power in the future. But the legal consequences were just beginning. Patricia was charged with breaking and entering, destruction of property, reckless endangerment of a minor, attempted voluntary manslaughter, embezzlement, fraud, multiple counts of harassment. Her trial lasted 3 weeks. I attended every single day, sitting in the gallery, watching as witness after witness detailed the pain she had caused. The prosecutor presented the security footage of Patricia and her contractors destroying Myra's dialysis machine. The courtroom fell silent as they watched Patricia smile while cutting the tubes that kept my daughter alive. The defense tried to argue that Patricia was simply enforcing HOA rules and didn't understand the severity of her actions. But the prosecution destroyed that argument by showing emails where Patricia had specifically researched dialysis equipment and knew exactly how critical it was for Myra's survival. This wasn't ignorance, the prosecutor said in his closing statement. This was calculated cruelty. Patricia Blackwood knew that destroying this machine could kill an 8-year-old child, and she did it anyway because she valued her petty rules more than a human life. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Patricia's face crumbled as the verdict was read. She was sentenced to 15 years in prison, with no possibility of parole for at least 8 years. She was also ordered to pay restitution to every family she had wronged, totaling over $500,000. As the judge read the sentence, Patricia looked across the courtroom at me. There was no more arrogance in her eyes. No more cruelty. Just the hollow realization that her reign of terror was over. I felt no satisfaction in her punishment. I felt no joy. I only felt relief that she could never hurt anyone else again. 3 months after Patricia's sentencing, Mira was finally strong enough to come home from the hospital. We had a brand new dialysis machine, donated by a medical equipment company that had heard our story. It was top of the line, with every safety feature imaginable. But more than that, Mira had been approved for the kidney transplant waiting list. The doctors were optimistic about finding a match. On the day we brought Mira home, the entire neighborhood gathered on our street. They had decorated it with balloons and welcome home signs. Children from Myra's school had drawn pictures of butterflies, remembering her love for them. As I carried Mira out of the car, the crowd erupted in applause. My daughter, shy and overwhelmed, buried her face in my shoulder. "It's okay, baby," I whispered. "They're here because they love you." Our neighbor, Mrs. Chen, approached with tears in her eyes. She had been one of Patricia's victims, nearly evicted over a garden gnome violation. "Thank you," she said to me. "Thank you for standing up to her. Thank you for giving us our neighborhood back." I shook my head. "I didn't do anything special. I just protected my daughter." "You did more than that," she said. "You showed us that bullies can be stopped. That justice can win." Over the following weeks, Meadowbrook Estates transformed. Without Patricia's iron fist, neighbors began to actually talk to each other. They organized community events. They started a neighborhood watch that focused on helping each other, not punishing each other. The new HOA board consisted of kind, reasonable people who understood that rules should serve the community, not control it. They eliminated the ridiculous violations and focused on things that actually mattered: safety, maintenance, and fostering a sense of belonging. For the first time in years, Meadowbrook Estates felt like a real community. 6 months after Patricia's sentencing, I received a letter in the mail. It was from the state prison, and Patricia's name was on the return address. I hesitated before opening it. Part of me wanted to throw it away, to forget Patricia existed. But curiosity won out. The letter was handwritten, the words shaky and uneven. "Dear Chief Minister Miller. I know I have no right to contact you. I know that anything I say will sound like excuses. But I wanted you to know that I understand now what I did. In prison, I've had a lot of time to think. A lot of time to realize how my need for control destroyed lives. I told myself I was maintaining standards, preserving property values, keeping order. But the truth is, I was just a bully who enjoyed having power over others. When I destroyed your daughter's dialysis machine, I knew what I was doing. I knew it could kill her. And I did it anyway because I was so convinced that my rules were more important than anything else. I was so convinced that I was right. I was wrong. I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I think about Mira every single day. I think about how close I came to killing an innocent child because of my pride and cruelty. I am sorry. Those words are not enough, but they are all I have. I hope your daughter is healthy. I hope she gets her transplant. I hope she lives a long, beautiful life filled with everything I tried to take from her. Patricia Blackwood." I read the letter twice, then set it down on my desk. I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't feel hatred. I just felt sad for Patricia, sad that she had wasted so much of her life being cruel, sad that it took destroying a child's medical equipment for her to understand basic human decency. I didn't write back. Some things don't require a response. Instead, I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. It was part of our story, but it wasn't the end of it. 8 months after we brought Mira home, we received the call we had been praying for. "Mr. Miller, we have a kidney match for Mira." I nearly dropped the phone. "Are you serious?" "Yes, sir. We need to move quickly. Can you bring her to the hospital within the hour? We'll be there in 20 minutes. The transplant surgery lasted 7 hours. I sat in the waiting room, surrounded by friends and neighbors who had become family. Mrs. Chen brought food. My assistant brought coffee. Myra's teacher brought cards from all of her classmates. When Dr. Patel finally emerged from the operating room, she was smiling. The surgery was a success. The new kidney is functioning beautifully. Mira is going to be okay. I broke down in tears. For the first time in 3 years, since Sarah's death, since Myra's diagnosis, I allowed myself to truly cry. Not tears of pain or fear, but tears of relief and overwhelming gratitude. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you." The recovery was long and difficult. Mira had to take anti-rejection medications and undergo regular checkups. But with each passing day, she grew stronger. Her skin regained its color. Her eyes sparkled with life. She had energy to play, to laugh, to be a child again. 3 months after the transplant, Mira was well enough to return to school full-time. On her first day back, I walked her to her classroom, just like I used to. "Daddy," she said, holding my hand. "I'm not scared anymore." "Scared of what, sweetheart?" "Scared of being a butterfly that only lives for a few weeks. The doctor says my new kidney could last 20 years or more. That's a lot of time to fly." I knelt down and hugged her tight. "You're going to fly for a very, very long time, baby. I promise." A year after Patricia's arrest, I was invited to speak at a national conference about HOA reform. Myra's story had sparked a nationwide conversation about the need for accountability and oversight in homeowners associations. Standing at the podium, looking out at hundreds of faces, I told our story. I told them about Myra's illness, about Patricia's cruelty, about the system that allowed one person to wield so much unchecked power. HOAs were created to maintain community standards and protect property values, I said. But somewhere along the way, some of them became instruments of petty tyranny. They became places where people like Patricia Blackwood could abuse their power without consequence. We need reform. We need oversight. We need laws that protect residents from harassment and abuse. We need to remember that behind every violation notice, every fine, every rule, there are real human beings with real lives. Lives that matter more than the color of a mailbox or the height of grass. My daughter almost died because someone valued rules more than human life. We cannot let that happen again. The speech was met with a standing ovation. Within months, several states passed HOA reform laws, creating independent oversight boards and limiting the power of HOA presidents. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Meadowbrook Estates became a model community, featured in articles about how neighborhoods could thrive when they focused on kindness instead of control. The new HOA board started programs to help disabled residents, organized community meals, and created a fund to assist families facing financial difficulties. Patricia's reign of terror had ended, and something beautiful had grown in its place. Mira is 11 years old now. Her transplanted kidney is still functioning perfectly. She's on the school's art club, and her drawings of butterflies cover our refrigerator. She's a happy, healthy child who loves life. We still live in Meadowbrook Estates. I thought about moving after everything that happened, but this place has become our home. The neighbors who stood by us, who supported us through the darkest time, they're our family now. Sometimes, when I watch Mira play in the backyard with the neighborhood kids, I think about how close we came to losing her. I think about Patricia's cruelty and how one person's actions can ripple out and affect so many lives. But I also think about the good that came from our struggle. The families who were freed from Patricia's tyranny, the reforms that protect other residents from similar abuse, the community that learned to care for each other instead of judging each other. Justice was served. Patricia Blackwood is still in prison, and by all accounts, she's a changed person. She's taken every rehabilitation program available. She's expressed genuine remorse. But that doesn't erase what she did. It doesn't bring back the time Mira spent suffering unnecessarily. Last week, Mira asked me about Patricia for the first time. Daddy, did that mean lady ever say she was sorry? I thought about the letter in my desk drawer. Yes, baby. She did. Do you forgive her? It was a question I'd asked myself many times. Did I forgive Patricia? Could I forgive someone who nearly killed my child? I don't know, I told Mira honestly. Forgiveness is complicated. But I don't hate her anymore. I just feel sad that she made such terrible choices. Mira nodded thoughtfully. I think I forgive her. Because if I don't, it's like she's still hurting me, you know. And I don't want to be hurt anymore. I want to be happy. The wisdom of children never ceases to amaze me. At 11 years old, my daughter understood something that many adults struggle with their entire lives. Forgiveness isn't about excusing someone's actions. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of anger and pain. You're very wise, sweetheart, I said, kissing the top of her head. I learned from you, Daddy. You taught me that being strong doesn't mean hurting people. It means standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. On the 3rd anniversary of Myra's transplant, the Meadowbrook Estates HOA did something special. They created a butterfly garden in the community park, dedicated to Mira and all the children who face medical challenges. The garden was beautiful, filled with flowers that attracted butterflies of every color. In the center stood a small plaque that read, "The Mira Miller Butterfly Garden, a reminder that even the most delicate creatures can be stronger than we imagine. May we always choose kindness over cruelty, compassion over control." The entire neighborhood attended the dedication ceremony. Mira cut the ribbon, her face glowing with happiness. As the ribbon fell away, dozens of butterflies were released into the garden. They swirled around us in a kaleidoscope of colors, and for a moment, it felt like magic. I stood there with my arm around my daughter, watching the butterflies dance in the sunlight, and I thought about our journey. The pain, the fear, the anger, the justice, the healing, and finally, the peace. Patricia Blackwood had tried to destroy us. She had tried to impose her will, to enforce her rules, to prove her power. But in the end, she only succeeded in bringing a community together. She only succeeded in showing everyone the difference between leadership and tyranny. And most importantly, she had failed to break my daughter's spirit. Mira looked up at me, squinting against the sun. Daddy, do you think butterflies remember being caterpillars? I don't know, baby. Why? Because I remember when I was sick. I remember being scared and tired all the time. But now I'm different. I'm stronger. Like I went through a metamorphosis. You definitely did, sweetheart. You're the strongest butterfly I know. She grinned and ran off to join her friends, chasing butterflies through the garden. Her laughter echoed across the park, pure and joyful and alive. I stayed there watching her, my heart full of gratitude. Gratitude for the doctors who saved her life, gratitude for the donor who gave her a second chance, gratitude for the community that supported us, gratitude for justice that was served. And gratitude for every single day I got to spend with my beautiful, brave, resilient daughter. Patricia Blackwood had tried to clip my daughter's wings. But Mira had learned to fly anyway. And that, in the end, was the greatest victory of all. 5 years have passed since that terrible day when Patricia destroyed Myra's dialysis machine. My daughter is now 13 years old, a thriving teenager who loves art, plays volleyball, and dreams of becoming a doctor someday so she can help other sick children. Her transplanted kidney continues to function beautifully. Every checkup brings good news, and the doctors say she's one of their greatest success stories. But more than her physical health, it's Myra's spirit that amazes me. She carries no bitterness, no anger. She's learned to transform her pain into purpose. Last month, Mira started a non-profit organization called Butterflies for Hope. She visits children's hospitals, talking to kids with chronic illnesses, sharing her story, and giving them hope. She brings art supplies and teaches them to draw butterflies, explaining that transformation is always possible, even in the darkest times. I want them to know they're not alone, she told me. I want them to know that being sick doesn't mean you can't have dreams. Watching her comfort a frightened 6-year-old boy facing his first dialysis treatment, I saw not just my daughter, but a beacon of light born from darkness. Patricia tried to destroy her, but instead, she helped create someone who heals others. The butterfly garden in Meadowbrook Estates has become something more than we ever imagined. It's now a gathering place where families with sick children come to find peace and community. The HOA established a support fund that helps families afford medical equipment and treatments. What was once a neighborhood ruled by fear and petty regulations has become a sanctuary of compassion. As for Patricia, she was released on parole last year after serving 8 years of her sentence. I learned that she immediately moved to a different state, away from the memories and shame of what she'd done. I heard through Detective Shaw that she now volunteers at a homeless shelter and spends her time trying to help others. I never reached out to her, and she never contacted us again after that one letter. Some chapters close forever, and that's okay. Her punishment wasn't just the prison sentence, it was having to live with the knowledge of what her cruelty almost cost an innocent child. But the story doesn't end with Patricia. It ends with the countless lives that changed because of what happened. The HOA reform laws that passed in our state have now been adopted by 12 other states. Thousands of families are protected from the kind of abuse we endured. Congressional hearings have been held. National guidelines have been established. All because one HOA president went too far, and we chose to fight back. I'm no longer chief minister, I chose not to run for another term, deciding instead to focus on my family and advocacy work. But the changes we initiated continue to ripple outward, protecting people I'll never meet, in neighborhoods I'll never visit. Sometimes late at night, when I check on Mira sleeping peacefully in her room, I think about how differently things could have ended. If Patricia had destroyed that machine just 1 hour earlier, before I could get Mira to the hospital, if the doctors hadn't been able to stabilize her, if we hadn't found a kidney donor. So many things had to go right for my daughter to survive. And I'm grateful for every single one of them. But I'm also grateful for the hard parts. The struggle taught us resilience. The injustice taught us to fight for what's right. The cruelty we faced taught us the immeasurable value of compassion. And Patricia's punishment taught everyone watching that no one, regardless of their position, is above basic human decency. Yesterday, Mira came home from school excited about a project. Her class is studying leadership, and she has to write an essay about someone who influenced her life. "I'm writing about you, Daddy," she said. "About how you showed me that being powerful doesn't mean controlling people. It means protecting them. Standing up for them, fighting for them when they can't fight for themselves." I hugged her tight, fighting back tears. "You make me so proud, baby. I want to be like you when I grow up," she whispered. "Strong and kind at the same time." "You already are," I told her. "You already are." As I write these final words, I'm sitting in the butterfly garden, watching Mira teach a group of younger children how to draw monarch butterflies. The afternoon sun paints everything golden, and the air is filled with laughter and the gentle flutter of wings. This is what justice looks like, not just punishment for those who do wrong, but healing and growth for those who were hurt. This is what triumph looks like, not victory over an enemy, but the transformation of tragedy into hope. Patricia Blackwood tried to destroy my daughter's life because she valued power over people, rules over compassion, control over kindness. But she failed. She failed because good people stood together. She failed because justice prevailed. She failed because my daughter's spirit was stronger than her cruelty. And in failing, she inadvertently created something beautiful. A community that cares, laws that protect, a garden where butterflies dance. And a young girl who survived and now helps others survive too. That's the real ending to this story. Not revenge, but redemption. Not hatred, but healing. Not darkness, but light. Mira looks over at me and waves, her smile bright as sunshine. A butterfly lands on her shoulder, and she laughs with pure delight. My daughter, my beautiful, strong, kind, miraculous daughter, is thriving. And that is the greatest justice of all.